Internet use violations, threats over the World Wide Web. This is my presentation for Module 14, our case study. Let's go. Category 1, Problem Identification and Analysis. What do I know? Background. We're at Slattery Steno High School in a large city, historically affluent area of that city. Students have the latest and greatest fashion and technology. Two of our main subjects. First one, we have Dr. Harvey Smith, the principal of Slattery Steno. He was named Principal of the Year 2 years ago. He's well established, respected by the parents, and focused on maintaining the reputation of being a principal of one of the highly regarded schools in the area. He recruits highly qualified teachers for available positions. Here we have enter Miss Robin Tate. Miss Robin Tate is the newest teacher at Slattery Steno High School. She is 1 year of tenure, teaches zoology, botany, and genetics. She's completed undergrad, master's, and at least 1 year of postgrad. Makes her a little older than most new teachers. She has a highly structured classroom, prides herself on it. She has a very rigorous course load. Very, very heavy, very, very strict with it. And as a result, she's had a multitude of parent and student complaints. What else do I know? The situation. During November of Miss Tate's second year, over the course of a 3-day weekend, Miss Tate discovered an email from an unidentified source. The email urged her to view a specific website. Once she logged into the website, she found highly suggestive comments about her behavior and her actions within the classroom. Critical comments about the difficulty of her classes. Comments laced with very offensive language. One would assume that if I was to write it here for this class, we'd see a lot of asterisks, exclamation points, dollar signs, and hashtags. The final comment was, "Who wants Miss Tate to disappear?" Miss Tate informed the principal, Dr. Smith, about the website page. She was very fearful, very tearful even. She felt very unsafe. She even told Dr. Smith that she was going to be spending the rest of the night with her parents. Dr. Smith read the email and assessed the page. Felt it was a prank. Thought it was directed from a student who was very unhappy with her. Asked her to think about instances from the previous week. Boom! Here she comes up with the idea of William Hall. Does not like her. Very disrespectful in class. Dr. Smith encourages Miss Tate that they will investigate in the morning, and if necessary, they will get the district technologist involved. Let's go. What do I need to know? What is the precedent for these situations? Has this happened before? What's the district and school's policy on it? Is there a general harassment policy? Because that would fall under this, if there isn't any of the previous policy. Intent. What does disappear mean? Perhaps the meaning can be inferred from the rest of the message and the other comments. However, perception's reality. However I feel you portrayed it is how it really is to me. The scope of the Facebook page. How many students are participants? How many are a part of the page but maybe not posting? For instance, I belong to a group on Facebook that says there's 4,000 plus members, but there's currently only like 16 people that post. When and where was the Facebook page created? The info on the page can determine this. Was it within the school hours or was it outside of the school hours? If it was within the school hours, where? If it wasn't, maybe less important. But you can track down IP addresses. District technologist comes in right there. When have the posts been posted? Within school hours, outside school hours, same aspect. We can check that from time, student enrollment, etc. That can lead into a completely different situation. But let's continue on. What's the source of the page? Who's the admin or creator of said page? Who sent the email? What was their intent? To bring awareness or to further harass? Who's aware of the page? Are other teachers aware but not doing anything about it? Considering Miss Tate's reputation? What's the deal with William Hall? I feel like in the outline of the narrative, Miss Tate jumped directly at William Hall. So there might be some previous dialogue. Maybe he's gotten her in trouble to the extent that she's had to go to Dr. Smith. I don't know. We're unraveling it. I'm treating this like a murder mystery type novel. The problem. There's a multitude I took out of this from seeing some of my other classmates' posts. I may be a little off. I may be going way deeper than what the assignment's intended. So, students and parents have had a poor response to Miss Tate's instructions methods, high expectations, and lack of adaptation to her teaching environment. Miss Tate has received feedback from her leader to make changes to her methodology, yet has failed to change her ways. Students have resorted to guerrilla tactics to vent their frustration, a hate group, if you will, with no rules, freedom to post what they want with no moderation, and it's hidden. Not only have students utilized and frequented this hate group, but the subject of their hate group has discovered the page and developed an expected emotional response and has perceived the comments to be a threat on her life. The administration has improperly attempted to calm Miss Tate down and reassure her of her safety. When Miss Tate was asked if she had any suspects, she immediately called out William Hall. Is there already a predisposition from her towards this student? Category 2. Proposed plan of action and strategies for implementation. Plan of action part 1. Dissection/intervention. We need to break this all apart. First off, we need to address the situation top down. As I already said, I felt like there was multiple problems, so there's a couple issues present. What's the biggest and most prevalent issue? Solving the issue will resolve and bring closure to X, Y, and Z. Like, let's address that, progress down the list. With each issue, document the facts, what you know to be true. Extremely important with social media is it can be deleted easily, and the recovery process of deleted material is extensive and time-consuming. I've seen a couple of news stories about how they needed to extract Facebook data and Snapchat data, and it takes weeks to work with them. Prior to acting, become familiar with school and district policies, if I'm not already. If I'm Dr. Smith and I was Principal of the Year 2 years ago, I should be familiar with these policies. Determine if there is a precedent for this. Consult my peer group. Once again, if I'm Dr. Smith, there should be a group of principals who either confide in me or I confide in them, and we talk and we discuss methodology. Professional, or ensure that the page and any further action on that page has been disabled. Know that to be a fact, that you could do that. And you could even just lock that page down completely, report it to Facebook, request administrative control. That happens quicker than recovering deleted data. Professional, non-accusatory, and neutral interview/questioning. Speak privately with Miss Tate. This conversation is an interview, a seek to understand, not a continuation of the conversation on the phone to assure that this situation will be handled or to try and calm her down, which was done completely improperly, a complete disregard for Miss Tate's feelings. As her employer, I should not have taken that approach if I was Dr. Smith. Speak with the students. Speak with the students who participated in the page individually, smaller sessions. This could be one student. This could be 10 students who decided to create it. Who's the moderators? Who's the frequent posters? Act on the findings. Contact the parents of the students deemed to be directly involved, the creators, moderators, high commenters. Discipline and reprimand perpetrators. Follow precedent. If possible, if there's precedent, we need to follow it. Ensure that the punishment fits the crime should there be multiple levels of involvement. If I'm the creator of the page and I'm supporting this and I did this, I created the forum, maybe I should have a higher level of reprimand than somebody who just joined the group or liked the page versus someone who's a frequent commenter, someone who's an admin of the page. If there's a policy, hold an assembly to discuss it. Do so after the situation has died down a little bit and the punishments have been dealt out. That way it doesn't feel from the student body as if A happened, B's the response, and it tends to have more of a non-attentive overtone to it from the students. If there's not a policy, write one. The results of this situation have to establish a precedent. Ensure that if there is access on school networks to social media, it has been disabled. This should be part of the internet filtration, and if the internet filtration system isn't filtered, then it should at least filter out social media, if anything. Plan of action, part 3. I realize this says part 1. Closure. Work diligently with Miss Tate to remedy the situation in her class. If necessary, allow her administrative leave for the tensions to die down in her class. The students are going to know. There's going to be a direct response from those students should there be punishment, discipline, reprimand, any kind of thing. An assembly, they're going to know it was her as a result of the page. Put a plan in place to evaluate her progress and reform to not be as strict. You got to blame the process, not the people. We're not blaming Miss Tate. We're just blaming how she chose to structure her classroom environment and her course load So it's not her fault, and it's not necessarily the student's fault. Yes, they acted inappropriately, but there were complaints leading up to it, and the complaints of the student are not the people's fault. It's not their fault. The fact that it hasn't changed is not necessarily Ms. Tate's fault either. Look at the process for the evaluation of teachers and educators in that school system and how that they structure their classroom environment. So if it's aware that there's been multiple complaints about her and nothing has, and she's been just provided feedback but she's not acted on it and nothing's happened, then the process is broken. We need to provide new teacher education for creating positive classroom environments. Understanding a culture of the school when coming into it will be helpful for a new teacher to adapt. The same is similar with our workplace. So for instance, at Jet.com, when new managers come in, they come from environments that can sometimes be a lot stricter and a lot harsher. For instance, one such example is the use of a cell phone, even by a manager out on the floor, is punishable by a write-up. In 3 write-ups, they could get fired at X company, and that's not the case here. So it's almost a culture shock, and if you can prepare them before they're actually in an environment where they need to act and instruct and cultivate that culture, their own classroom environment, then you have the ability to tackle some of these problems head on. And if the page was created during school hours, ensure that the IT department has blocked on-premises access to social media. Implementation. You got to be firm in your decisions. There's no backing off. If you get a little bit of a response from either side, then you need to stay firm with it. You can't say, well, all right, you're right on this part. Once you make a decision, you got to stick by it. You got to support it. You got to move on. Maintain neutral affiliations. Yeah, Ms. Tate's my employee, but guess what? At the same time, I got to act in the students' behavior. So I can't seem as if I'm taking her side and strictly just punishing the students and not taking into consideration that it was a small group of students and not the whole entire student body. Got to maintain professionalism throughout this whole entire process. I could easily just say, yeah, whatever, Miss Tate, like Dr. Smith did in regard to, I think it's a prank. She's concerned. Just because you think it's a prank doesn't mean you can say that. That's not professional. That's not a professional relationship that an employer should have with their employee. Same thing with tone and diction. Throughout the whole entire process, I can't get fired up about it, but I also have to be very smart in my word choice and very succinct in what I have to say and how I have to say it. Resolve the issue. I'm running out of time. What's best for the students? Use this as a learning moment. Inform all the students of the dangers and consequences of cyberbullying. Do the same for the parents. Encourage parents to discuss with their children what is acceptable on social media and how to act. Act with brevity and succinctness. Put training into place for new teachers to learn the school's culture. Work with Ms. Tate to develop a better understanding of her audience. Make sure this situation, the page, is contained and there can be no more comments or new viewers. Keep the conversations with those involved private and confidential. Personal example. We had something like this at work. We had our employees create a page called Jet Heads, and managers came across it because it's Facebook. It happens. Jet would be in a manager's profile as a name, and then ultimately what would happen is that they would discover it. They'd come across it. Some employee would invite them to like the page, or someone who was just a basic employee got promoted to a lead level or then a manager level and was still involved in this page. And we found from HR that we were not able to act on anything of this because it's a freedom of speech example. However, should there be anything directed at any individual, manager, lead, associate, we could act seeing it. Because if it was a threat to that person's reputation, if it was libel or slanderous, or if it addressed the situation, started a rumor, etc. Debriefing. What was I thinking? This is a lesson for all involved. This has probably happened before and has gone unreported. Dr. Smith's not an effective leader because he allowed for his employee to continue to struggle and not be successful and fail ultimately in improving her classroom environment based off her feedback. If I'm her boss and I instruct her that this is probably a good way for you to improve your rapport with your students, and you don't do it, I can't in this kind of environment where I'm your employer and you're my employee and we work on an evaluation kind of thing, and that's how you can develop your tenure and you can develop, your rapport with your students. I can't just say, all right, well, your call. No, I have to act on that. And there's probably policies in place, Dr. Smith should know about this, for acting on that.